Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Gathering hosted by SRS Paranormal. Before we jump into the show this evening, I just wanted to take a moment to let everybody know that you can follow our show, The Gathering, here that's hosted on Paranormal Warehouse. But if you want to keep up with what SRS Paranormal is doing, please make sure you come over to our Facebook page, SRS Paranormal Fans. That's where you can see our live investigation feeds. You can also see everything else that SRS Paranormal is doing. We're getting some feedback from somewhere, guys. But we have a very special show lined up for you guys this evening. We have Dan Allen. He is the owner of several incredible haunted locations, one of which is Randolph County Infirmary. He also owns Stone Mansion. And the reason I mentioned those two specifically is because in September, SRS Paranormal will be traveling to do both of those locations on a weekend road trip. But as always, I'm Matt. You have Michelle and Al in the upper corner. You have Christina, our photographic analysis investigator, in the bottom. And you have Mr. Dan Allen. So without further ado, Dan, go ahead and tell us about yourself and about your properties. Dan, can you hear me?
You have to repeat that loud.
I said, go ahead and introduce yourself, Dan. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about your properties.
Okay. Now, I'm Dan Allen, but I'm owner and president of Saving Meal Properties. We buy old properties and restore them back to their former glory without turning them into apartments or without altering the original structure of the building. We want to save the inside and out as well. So for further generations, for ghost hunters, want to get married there, if you want, just love the history, that's what we're about, saving the history.
So you do this with your twin brother, is that correct, Dan?
Identical twin brother, yes.
Okay.
With a few other people, but him and I are the ones that are running the show, but we do have several other people with us. We got Tim Murphy, we've got Kate Thornburg, we've got Stan. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I'm sorry, Stan. And a few others, definitely got plenty more. So, yeah.
Well, I think it's pretty amazing that you guys are restoring these properties and doing it in a way that isn't, like you said, converting them, because I think that a lot of history gets lost when, I know like for here where we live in Kingsport, there is what was the original, and this is Kingsport, Tennessee. What was the original hospital was years ago converted into, I mean, we're talking back like 50 years ago, they converted it into apartments. And sadly, all the original history of that building is completely lost now. It's been completely cut up and it will never be reminiscent of what it was, which was the first hospital in our area. The building is, over 130 years old. So it's just wonderful to see that you're taking the approach of actually restoring these buildings and bringing back their history for what they're known for. So I think that's really fantastic. And as paranormal researcher, I love the fact that you let teams come in there and document the occurrences. So I guess I got to ask, Dan, how did you get involved in this? What made you want to allow teams to come and investigate these historic locations?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time hearing you. I wonder if we ought to go to cell phone.
Hey, Al, you want to just call and put him on speaker?
Yeah.
Stand by, Dan. He'll call you.
All right.
There we go.
All right. Sorry about that, guys. Sometimes what happens is we have technical difficulties somewhere along the stream. And what we found the solution is to put the guest on speaker. So, Dan, what I was asking, and Al, repeat it if you have to for him, but if Dan can't hear me, but what I was asking is what made him decide to restore these properties for the use of paranormal investigations?
What made me decide to do this?
Yes.
Okay, let me get the echo off too. don't know how to do this up. How do I get the echo off? I'm sorry, guys.
Al, you might try repeating the question. May be able
Yeah.
to hear you.
Okay. We lost him.
All right, everybody. I'm sorry about that. I'll work on some viewer comments and questions that have come in. And guys, I apologize for technical difficulty. We are at the mercy of live streaming. But John Kelly asked, have any of you ever been to Alcatraz? The answer to that is none of us that are on right now have been to Alcatraz. But Kevin, Kevin, I was saying on right now on the show.
Yeah.
Kevin, our lead investigator, actually has been to Alcatraz and has investigated Alcatraz.
Was it echoing there or not?
I think it's a little better.
We're getting bad feedback. Okay, we had another question. I'll take this question too while we're getting him squared away. Dan, do you allow individuals to go alone to your locations?
We just had our first.
Did he hang up?
I can't hear him.
I can't hear
Yeah,
anything. I think he's calling back. Hang in there, guys.
Sorry, guys. Again, we're at the mercy of that. I think he said yes to that, to Cindy, who had asked that question.
You there?
There.
Yeah, we can hear you now. Okay, sorry.
All right, we had a question that came. Dan, can you hear us? Can he hear us?
Yeah, can you hear us now?
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
All right.
I missed that last question.
We had a question from somebody on the live audience that was asking, do you allow individuals to come in alone to your locations?
Yes, we do. If they're willing to pay the full price, it's one set price. And if they want to come in alone or come in with a group, that's fine. I'm getting feedback. Let me get away from my computer. You don't have me visual anymore?
No.
No.
Okay. Here we go. All right, this will be better.
All right. Can you hear us now? I feel like that Verizon commercial. Can you hear us now?
Can you hear me now?
Or hear me now? Yeah, that's it.
Now, yes, we do have individuals that come in by themselves. They pay the full price, of course. And we just had our first person come through, and he did all three places we offer right now by himself.
Wow.
Wow.
We'll have to check and see if he went through the entire places, but he said he was going to. So yeah, you can come in by yourself. We've had, I know I had one other gentleman come in from Alberta, and he didn't last 45 minutes by himself. So.
Wow.
Which location was that?
Somebody walked up behind him, and he turned around, nobody's there, and then when he turned around again, somebody grabbed his elbow. So he said he was out of there.
And that was it, huh?
Yeah. Which location was that in?
That was at the asylum.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, Dan, I heard a rumor about the asylum, and now tell me if this is true. I read somewhere that there was once a paranormal team that had come in to investigate the asylum. They got so frightened during their investigation that they literally abandoned their equipment, and somebody had to go retrieve the equipment for them. Is that a true story, or is that just something that somebody posted that's bogus?
I wish it was true, but I haven't heard of it before.
All right, so that's probably fake news. All right, well, I had read that somewhere, and I thought, man, 15 years as a paranormal researcher, the team, all these years that we've been doing this, we've had some amazing experiences. We've had some terrifying moments, I'd say, but never one that's made me want to leave my equipment and go home yet. Now we'll see what happens when we come visit your place. That may change.
Well, hopefully it happens to you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Just give me your address, and I'll send your stuff back.
So, how long have you actually owned these properties, Dan?
Well, me and my brother bought the old Blackford County Jail, and that's in Hartford City, Indiana, on a bid, on asylum bid, and the sheriff used to live in the jail itself, and we thought, what better way to buy a house that's already ready to go, and the starting bid was $5,500. Of course, this is back in '96, so I don't think TAPS was on or anything then. I don't have TV, so I'm not sure. But we ended up getting the place on a silent bid, and so I was in Washington State at the time, and I didn't move back till 2000, and never even thought about the place being haunted. We was thinking maybe do a museum or something, something maybe earn a little cash. And 2 years into living there without hearing or seeing anything, one night in walks this big guy into my bedroom as soon as I laid down. And long story short, it was a sheriff that used to work there that died upstairs in the office. And when I described who the historian thought it was to his niece, he said, "Now, how'd you know all this?" So I guess I described him to a T, and the clothes he was wearing at the time is the clothes he wore always off duty. And this died in 1977. So when he something, like everybody pictures, and he wasn't transparent. The only reason I knew he wasn't real is because he didn't make a single sound when he walked in.
Wow.
So, of course, I didn't tell everybody that for 2 years. And then once I didn't want to be known as a crazy guy living in the jail. Crazy.
Saying stuff, right? Yeah.
But anyway, so word got out after that, and ghost hunters came to us. So it just seemed to work pretty well as long as we did the work ourselves. Then I saw this asylum. It was slowly digressing, and the county didn't have enough money to properly maintain it. They did their best with what they had. And so they said if we had a good business plan and, of course, some money, they would consider it, because they've had other people approach them, of course, apartments and a few other, junk stores and such. And we were the only one that came up and said, we want to leave it as is. And they liked it. And they said, as long as it doesn't look bad, make it look like an old haunted house or whatever, boarded up windows, tall grass. And they said, we'll be happy. And so far, they're happy.
Well, good.
So we have created some revenue for their town as well.
Absolutely. So Dan, before you had that experience living in a jail, had you ever had a paranormal experience, or was that your first paranormal experience?
I've had paranormal experiences before, but that was the first one. When the sheriff came in and we stared at each other for 20 seconds. This first thing we've been incorporated into. Yeah. So, I've seen somebody, just quickly, it wasn't out of the corner of my eye. I don't count those, but so I've seen a few things, but nothing that couldn't be, just like, hey, that was neat to see. But this one was just, it was too realistic. And then once I found out, I described the next sheriff to a T. It was just, personally, I find it fun.
Yeah, that's an incredible experience. I mean, and to have that kind of connection to the property is even cooler.
At that point, that's the best one I never encountered, but it wasn't maybe 1 or 2 a year at the most prior to that. But after the sheriff came in the room, that place really let loose. I had stuff happening all the time after that.
Now, did I read that you and your brother actually lived in that jail while you were remodeling it?
We still live there.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We're trying to move out once we got it fairly good shape. So move out, so it's not. I think people would rather see a candlestick phone than a Remington typewriter versus a computer and a cordless phone in there. And it goes into the future,
Absolutely. So you actually own the asylum, you own the Blackford County Jail, and you own Stone Mansion, correct?
Yep. And then we own another building we're working on now that we're trying to get up to code. in Ohio City, Ohio, and that's we just call it the Ohio City School, but it's an old township school, and it's pretty good size. Built 1927. It's about 60,000 square feet as well.
Wow.
Full gym and stage and such. So, yeah, that's nice. That's a nice place too. So,
Yeah.
Ohio's a little bit more stringent with their fire code, so we just got to be sure we're up to code and we can get the doors open. But we'd like to have them open next month or two.
That's incredible, man. So I know we talked, for some of the viewers that might just be tuning in, we talked earlier in the top of the show about the organization that you're running to restore these buildings back to the way they actually were instead of converting them into apartments and shopping malls and those things. And that's really fantastic. What I would like to do is I would like to talk about the asylum first, simply because that's been a bucket list place for us for many years. Al and I have talked about that. How many times, Al? We have drooled at the concept of going there.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Glad to hear it.
So what can you tell us about it? What kind of activity do you guys get there?
I guess what avenue you want to go down on that? Experiences or the history, or?
Well, a little bit of both. I mean, a little bit of both, actually. We'd love to hear it.
Well, the history, I'll try to go quick. I've got a person that does history, but he's actually out of town right now. But the first building on this site was built in 1851, and it was a stone foundation with a wooden structure, and it lasts about 3 years. Well, you've got people all different types here. You've got mentally ill people. You've got poor people. You've got destitute people. All types of people here. And back then, everything was fire. Heat, cook, light, everything was fire. So I'm surprised a wooden structure lasted 3 years.
Right.
It did burn down. So, and nobody was killed, even though there was rumors that there were people killed. But nobody was killed in the fire. And the second structure was built a couple years later beside it. And if you don't fire bricks hot enough, they will dissolve.
Right.
They will slowly deteriorate.
Mm-hmm.
And those bricks that were fired probably on site weren't fired hot enough. And that building just slowly melted over the years. And in 1896, they started building another one that was completed in present day, 1899. But they built that when they were looking around to build another structure. They saw that the 1851 foundation was still there. So we still, in parts of it, have the 1851 foundation.
Wow. That's really cool.
Long time.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead, Dan. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
It ran until 2006, when the county finally closed it down, and I think they ended up trying to do a nursing home or such. But finally everything was done in 2012. And I think the county even quit heating it in 2013, and then I purchased it in 2015.
Okay.
So luckily it didn't sit long by itself, and it didn't get into private hands first. So it's pretty much intact. What it was in 1899, there's very little updating in here.
That's
Electric,
exciting.
stuff like that. But
So
yeah.
you guys have had I know Kindred Spirits come through. Was
Mhm.
Ghost Adventures, did they come through there too?
No, but give them a call.
I know Paranormal Lockdown did it, I believe.
Yes.
Nick and Katrina.
Yep, they were the first. And and then we've had one other group that came through, but I'm not allowed to mention it yet.
Okay.
Ah.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Coming to a TV show near you.
Yes, it is.
So
We're pretty good
Dan,
for our secrets on that. So
I got you. I understand. So Dan, so basically that facility pretty much had different types of patient care or occupancy through its whole history. So it never really stayed, decades and decades and decades with no activity. So do you guys have any idea of the number of deaths that were attributed to the property? That's a question I know people always ask when you talk about going places.
yeah, there were several hundred. Now I can't be quoted on that. I don't have the papers in front of me, but also back in the day, people weren't pronounced dead at their homes. They and I think even still today, they took them to the hospital to pronounce them dead.
Yeah.
Right.
So we said they died at the hospital. That's not necessarily true.
Right.
Nowadays, I had a friend die at home. You have to do an inquiry and an autopsy if they pronounce them dead at the house. So,
Yep.
Right.
so they're always pronounced dead at the hospital. So take that in consideration. It's
Sure.
really hard to count how many people passed, but there
Good
were some
point.
mix that came through, and these type of places, say if TB or cholera came through, you sure as heck didn't want them in town at their hospital, so you brought them out here. Is more of a long-term care, and so they came here sick, and they either left feet first or better.
Right.
So there was I'm sure a lot of deaths due to outbreaks as such, and of course there were some murders and some suicides and as well, and we even have a pauper's grave in the back. Last week, 61 people in the pauper's grave, but they didn't keep these records until 1900. So it was there 49 years before that too. So
Yeah, there could be many more.
and of course it's unmarked.
Right.
We don't know where it's at. We're hoping to get a ground penetrating radar out here, so we're not inadvertently parking on them. Forgotten in life, forgotten in death. Last thing I want to do is park on them.
Right.
Exactly. Be respectful always. That's right.
Right.
And Dan, I bring that up because a lot of people have in our opinion, and of course this is our opinion. It's not saying it's the way of the world. It's just our team's philosophy on this. Some people believe that you have to have deaths of the place for there to be activity, and in our experience, that's simply not true for us. We think all things that happen at a property are part of its history. It's part of its story, and that deposits energy on those locations. And that is those imprints those indelible imprints that are left on those places. So just its history as a hospital that saw cholera patients, that had people that had, mental illness, all those different things leave definitely, measurable marks of energy. So I think all those things are factors in hauntings, and all those things are factors in activity. So it sounds to me like you have the foundation, obviously, for a lot of very interesting paranormal activity. So now that you kind of hit on the history a little bit, what's some of the common activity that researchers and investigators encounter at the asylum?
Well, back up just a second. I agree with you on the people don't have to die there, because at the Liberty School we have there in Ohio City, I've seen people there, and I thought they were kids that broke in, so I went to chase them, went around the corner. They weren't there. And my guess is, if you wanted to relive your glory days, say you were
Absolutely
back on the football team, and then after that, life went downhill, you may want to come back to your glory days, and that may be why I saw whatever I saw there. I saw two kids actually run around the corner. One real casual, the other one folded right around them. So I thought for sure I had a couple kids in the school, but they didn't go anywhere. So I totally agree with you on that. So your question of what encounters people have had here at the asylum,
Yeah, just give some indication of some of the activity that's experienced at the asylum.
Well, there's a lot of slamming doors, and even when there's no wind outside, because we do like to dispel so we don't look foolish.
Of course.
And a lot of, people talking. So you go around the corner to see who it is. There's nobody there. In the asylum especially, and the maintenance guy before, when it was still running, said, "Oh, it's the boiler." Well, you hear a lot of footprints, and you'll be at the end of the hall, you hear somebody walk up behind you, and you're thinking it's somebody you're with. You turn around, there's nobody there. Well, we hadn't had the boiler on for a long time, and so we obviously know it's not the boiler. But that hasn't happened to me yet, but it happened to my niece, and she turned around and nobody was there, and she was, "I'm out of here."
I'm done. Yeah.
Lots of talking, lots of music, lots of singing, which the place had, back in the day. So kind of like, an energy reoccurrence or just coming back.
Sure.
But yeah, it's really cool. I've had people running up the stairs, and then nobody goes up, and we don't see anybody at the top. There's just a lot of things that happen, and to say that one particular thing happens, no, I can't say that. If you say kids' toys go about every time, I can't promise that.
Sure.
So we try to recreate some of the settings, and we have a checkerboard out for, say, if somebody wants to play checkers, hopefully they'll move a piece. So we try to encourage it, but it's kind of scientific as well.
Right.
But we won't fake anything. There won't be any speakers or anything like that. One thing we don't need to. Or another thing, if you ever got caught, might as well close the doors. But
That's right.
and all this new equipment coming out, it's fantastic. So we're learning as much as I think the ghost hunters themselves are learning. And we have a few people on the team that are experienced ghost hunters.
Right.
Stan and Tim are experienced ghost hunters, and they just love it. But just even doing maintenance work around here, if you explored every sound you heard, you get nothing done.
Yeah.
Right.
Stuff like
Sounds like the start of an investigation.
have to be a certain time, nothing.
Now,
But,
do you? Go ahead, Dan. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say my first experience was I was here by my first experience by myself here. I was spending the night by myself, and first getting a place, I'm more afraid of the living than the dead.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
A room with a deadbolt on it, but I was in the basement. It was still light out. It was nice and orangey. It was a nice, very hot summer day, and talking on my phone. I didn't want to go too far into the basement. I could still see out a couple of windows, and I thought if I did, I'd lose connection on the phone. And out of the mechanical room, I had my back to it. Somebody ran up to me real quick, and I was going to swing around with my elbow and knock them right off their feet. But just like in slow motion, a car wreck, I stopped right before I hit them. And I thought, it's got to be somebody's wife playing a joke on me, and I'm going to lay this person out. I'm 6'3", 240, so this person running at me wasn't 100 pounds. So I stopped, but unfortunately took my eyes off them for a second. Turned around and looked, they were gone. But I heard somebody run behind me through the paint chips. They stopped real quick, but right before I took my eyes off of them, they crossed their hands together and looked down with their feet together, like they were like standing kind of like at attention, but with their head down, arms folded in front of them.
Wow.
Well, it was really hot out, and this person had a thick winter coat on, and towels, white towels wrapped around his head, chin to head, that way, like they're trying to cover their ears. It was so cold.
Oh.
Well, that didn't make sense to me, of course, but later on we found out that the state had reprimanded some people here for over medicating some patients, and they found them standing in lines that even the patients didn't know they were going to. And I'm guessing that person saw me standing there. It wanted to be second. And when you're in line, by golly, keep your hands to yourself and your head, eyes down. And
Yeah,
so it made sense after that.
absolutely.
Yeah, the whole time I'm talking on the phone when this happens. So to my friend of mine, and I could hear my heartbeat through the phone. It was going so hard. So yeah, when stuff like that happens, these walls do want to talk. They haven't been able to talk for over 100 years. So
Yeah,
it was scary at the time, but it wasn't trying to be mean to me at all.
Now, do you find that certain types of equipment work better than others there?
Well, right now, it's the hot one seems to be the SLS.
Okay. We've got one of those.
Good, because there's some rooms where they're there all the time.
Okay.
And as soon as you walk in, turn it on, there they are. And it's unexplainable. There's not like something that looks like a skeleton that's trying to figure it out. No, it's not. And they're even interacting with us, hold your hand out. They'll hold their hand out.
Intelligent responses and interaction.
What's that?
So intelligent interaction.
Well, I think with the SLS we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what Christina was trying to say, is that you're actually documenting their interacting with you on the SLS.
Okay, right. Intelligent. Right. So, and there are some other times where asking questions and getting the answers either ear by ear or on the recorders seems to be, there are some intelligent spirits here or whatever they are.
Whatever you're communicating with, exactly.
And some residuals as well, of course.
Okay.
So is there pretty much activity throughout the whole place?
Yeah, there is. I'm not saying, because the SLS is so new, I can't say that it is through with the SLS, but yeah, I don't know of any place that says people say no, nothing's ever happened there.
Cool.
We do have a kind of a modern kitchen, just a small one. I don't think anybody's investigated in there, but I would say every place else, yes, there's been something going on in every place, and equally amounts too. It's not like very rarely you get something here, very rarely get something there. I hear stuff happening all over the building. So yeah, I can't say there's any super hot spots or not.
Okay.
At least at the asylum. I know some of the other places there is a few hotter spots than normal, but the asylum seems to be pretty equal.
Good to know.
Yeah, and to give you a little background on us, since we're getting ready to come up and see you in September, we're the type of team that we like to go in and we like to have the history when we go in, because we like to separate fact from folklore. That's very important to us, is to really be able to document factual occurrences, or try to match some of the things that we may get in sessions that we can link to historical events if at all possible. And we like to separate out the fictitious things, because those sometimes lead you down the rabbit hole that takes you away from getting to the truth of what's happening at a location. So we take all that history, and then we go in and we do our baselines, and we see what's normal for the environment. And we don't have any preconceived notions. We don't try to, say that this is what this is without validating that through meters, through interactions, through what we feel as investigators, what we have, secondary, tertiary ways to back up that data. So we collect the data as well as the evidence. And then we try to do everything we can, of course, to debunk any of the experiences that we get. And the reason I say that is because I think it is interesting when we hear that there are certain hotspots, and of course, we always check those out. But when we walk through, sometimes we just feel like we need to try something here, or we need to work in this area. And we usually let that instinct guide us, and it has served us extremely well over the years. So I just can't wait. This has been a bucket list location for me for quite a while. So every time we talk about a road trip, Al and I are like, Randolph County, Randolph County. So we can't wait to get up there and check it out. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
I think you'll like the mansion as well.
Yeah.
That's the other location. So why don't we talk a little bit about Stone Mansion? Tell us about it, a little bit of its history, and about that property.
Well, that history isn't very well documented. It's, it was a house, but I'll tell you the background of it is a general from the Civil War, right after the war, started building the house, and he looked around for the ideal property and found it, and there was already a house on it. So he had that house moved. Then he went to somewhere back east. I'm not sure it was New York or what, and bought a kit house and brought it back, 8 of them, and built them across the street for the workers to stay in while they built his house, because they knew it was going to take a long time. So there's 8 houses across the street, which rumored to have tunnels to go to each one, which seems a little elaborate, but we haven't found any tunnels. So he wanted to be able to look right down Meridian Street with his house, and so he built it starting 1868, after he got everything all ready to go, and it took a couple of years to build, and I think it was built. Well, the historical plot says 1868, so I don't know if it took. I heard it took 2 years, so must have started in 1866. That's the part we can't seem to find when it was started. But the plaque says 1868, but we've heard 1872 when it was finished. So it's till we can really find the actual. I'm not going to say that's what it is, but
sure.
The general was only 5 feet tall, so you'll find the doorknobs really low. So the doors were built for him, and the house is a pretty good sized house. It's on 2.5 acres right in town, and he had 40 acres at one time, but he gave away, I don't know how much at once, but now the county or the city or county graveyard is on it, and his stone is closest to the house. It's not too far behind the house, and it's the longest time it was it's the biggest gravestone, but somebody wanted to outdo him once and make a taller one, so there's one a little bit taller, but not as massive, just a little, I think 3-inch column that goes up taller than his. But anyway, now we don't know. We know that he passed away in 1891, and his wife passed away just a few months later. And we think, by what we've read, it stayed in the family, nieces, because they didn't have kids, nieces and some kind of relative till the early 20s. And that's when it went out of the family hands. And a front porch, I think, was added on that year as well to it. But it's a big brick Victorian style house. The foundation is built like the pyramids. They said huge, and you can see them, huge slabs of limestone that didn't even need mortar. They're fitted that well together.
Oh, wow.
So the general had money, and later on he became a legislator. He was a state representative, and then I believe a bank. I don't know if he started the bank or bank president. So apparently a pretty smart person as well. But he was the procurement officer in the Civil War. So
Okay.
rumor has it, no factual proof yet, that he may have over-ordered a little bit during the war and ended up in his house. So there was a train tracks that ran right through the property. So there's a little bit of train right away on the property. So yeah, it's,
And-
you know.
Convenient.
And I think also, Dan, I think I read that he was he instrumental in bringing the railroad through Winchester?
Very.
Yeah.
He took it away from Ridgeville and brought it to Winchester, and just so happens right through his property. What's the odds?
Yeah. And that's how he.
Absolute coincidence. There was no nefarious stuff there.
That's. I think I read that's how he got most of the materials delivered to his house to build his house.
I hope you read that somewhere. That'd be neat to find, because we haven't found it.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
it'd be, somebody said they think that, or it's obvious, or something like that. But if you can see where you actually read it, that'd be neat to see, because we're not going to say that's what happened until
You actually
Right.
have historical documents. Yeah.
because
I
we
respect
really
that.
sell them short if you pun, but we don't want to sell them short if he really didn't do it. He might have been a very trusting
Sure.
guy.
Yeah. So, what kind of activity goes on at the Stone Mansion?
I guess it takes years to find a full apparition. We
Right.
see them there all the time, inside and out, and it's weird because I've never heard of full apparitions being, well, other than somebody in the garden, but there's just as many outside there is inside. I've seen three
Wow.
myself.
You've seen 3.
Here, and 2 of them walked through past the door, which is okay. That's probably pretty common. But a third one was upstairs on the 3rd floor, and I just shut a window because it's getting ready to rain. Turned around, there was a guy walking right at me, and he took 3 steps and disappeared right in front of me. And he was looking at the ground. He wasn't looking at me. So I guess residual, I'm guessing. But he had this really beautiful, I don't know if it, what you would call it, dark blue. And then as it came towards the lapel, it turned into a beautiful violet. And he had the
Wow.
rough like a tuxedo, but no tie. And he was very well dressed, maybe 5'5" and 120 pounds. So not very big, but like I say, I didn't see his face, but he took 3 steps toward me casually and just disappeared.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that was unexpected, and it's too bad you don't feel something happening so you can start recording. No, they just come all different times. Just you don't know when it's going to happen, especially at the jail. There's so many things that happen that they would just love to have. You'd have to have so many more cameras up than we do now to catch all the stuff, and somehow they seem to avoid the cameras. You know, when you just turn away when something happens, you hear that so many times.
I was going to ask you, have you captured, I know Christina's going to want to know this question. Have you captured any really unique photos at any of these places? Because Christina is a photographic analysis expert. She actually, that's her background as a photographer. She actually used to do that with taps. So she is very well versed in that. So I have to ask anytime that we have any locations or people that own locations, if they have any cool photos that she could take a stab at, because she loves a challenge.
I do.
I've got a lot of them, and you swear you see what you're seeing. and maybe you can tell us otherwise, but
I'd love to give it a shot.
I'm pretty scientific myself. I've got like 5 patents, and I can explain away most of the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like to, burst people's bubbles when I see something and say, well, it's this, but I don't want them, looking bad either. So,
Yeah.
anyway,
All right, Dan, I got to ask the serious question then. Where you stand on orbs?
Right. There's 15% I can't explain away. And right, so I've got some orbs and some shots. I've got some people that shouldn't be there in those shots. I've got a whole bunch of things, as well as a lot of other people. And there's some stuff that I have no clue. And it just looks too realistic to be not what you think it is.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can convince yourself you'll see something. If you stare down a hallway with a bunch of doors, you'll eventually convince yourself you'll see someone sticking their head out.
Sure.
But if you really catch it on video or on a picture, that's different.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and we're the same way with things. We feel that about 95 to 98% of experiences fall into 2 categories. They are either explainable, or actually 3 categories. Really, they're either explainable, they're an anomaly that we can't quite put our finger on, but we can't really call it paranormal. And then there's those things that, yeah, we've done everything we can to disprove what this is. We have zero explanation. That is the compelling stuff. That's the stuff that keeps us coming back. And I'm just blown away when you were talking about seeing 3 apparitions at that location. I know for me, 15 years having traveled all over the country, investigating some of the most haunted places, I've seen 1, and it's what got me started on this journey 15 years ago. So, man, that's wonderful that you've seen 3. I envy you, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm very jealous that you have had that experience, because I think anybody watching this that's an investigator probably feels that same sentiment that, man, I wish I could say I went to a place that is that active with apparitions. So I hope we capture one while we're there.
That's like the Holy Grail.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's incredible.
Like I said, I've seen 3 inside and 1 outside, just at the Stone Mansion, not counting.
That's amazing.
At the asylum. So I guess I feel blessed. I didn't realize till later on when I tell people how frequent these happen, and it's like, oh really? Well, I've seen 5 already in the last couple of years, and they're almost to the point where they don't believe me. But
you go your entire paranormal career and not see a full body apparition. So the fact that you have seen that many is amazing.
Yeah, and there's another thing too there, Dan. I don't know where you are on
a few years ago. So yeah, I'm learning as much as well, because paranormal and historical, when the 2 combine, you do get a Mary that used to work in a kitchen or something. It's really cool, and may kind of take you down another avenue, more like a parallel universe or time travel, or
absolutely, yeah. Well, that's more compelling too, right? I mean, that's more compelling and that's why we like to separate that fact and folklore, because that's what's more compelling. If we get an EVP that says this is Mary, like you just said, that's a lot more compelling when we can go back and say, wow, in 1926 there was a Mary that worked here or lived here, or something happened here that involved somebody that was named Mary. Or you can sometimes use those things. I mean, we like to do things like actually reenact period related stuff. We'll play period related music sometimes. We've even actually had our historian dress in period clothing and speak like people of the time during experiments. So we do a lot of those type of things. But what I was going to say, Dan, is you may have some abilities. You may be somebody who is more sensitive to the paranormal than you even realize, and that might be why you have some experiences that others don't. I know that's the case for several on my team. We're a little more in tune, so we sometimes have different experiences than others. So that's really cool.
Right. And am I gifted towards spirits, or towards a different reality, or what?
Yeah. I I think that's the $1 million question. We don't know what we're communicating with, but it's clear we do communicate with intelligent things, right?
Sorry. What works in our places, and I like to tell people ahead of time, and people can try it elsewhere, is if we're trying to, say at the jail, contact a certain sheriff, we have them written down, we talk to them in present tense. Now, you say
Right.
like a town crier going through and talking the way they would have back then, you're kind of doing the same thing. You're reenacting.
Yes.
If we say, well, how did you die? We've had a really good night going one night, and somebody asked, how did they die? That was it. That was shut off, and we didn't hear another peep for the rest of the night. But prior, we had everything but a visual. We didn't see anything, but we had answers, names, but they said, how did you die? And turned them off. So I know if you have your own style, but when you come here, I want you to get the best you can as everybody else. And what works here, we'll tell you, we'll pass it on. And if what doesn't work, we'll pass that on too. But if you're really comfortable with that, then so be it, go for it. We're not going to say you can't do it.
Right.
But that's really helped out. We've had other ghost groups come back and said, we tried that, talking in present tense, and say don't talk into the electronic Hanson voice machine. You have to talk to them, talk into this recording box. They said that they've had more responses. It kind of, if they are listening, it's not throwing something at them that they don't understand.
Yeah, and then like you said, if it were, whether it's interdimensional travel, time travel, or if it's human spirits, whatever the case, whatever you subscribe to, that's why for like us, we use REM pods, but we make our own that are in what looks like music boxes. And we did that because we found that we sometimes just would not get any interaction at certain locations. In fact, a lot of locations, because it just looks like this weird scientific thing out of a laboratory. And we felt like, well, maybe if we mix that up and put it in something that might be more appealing to the specific time that we think activity is related to. And we've had really compelling results with that. So I think what you're saying is in my opinion, really correct, that sometimes, we talk into this recorder is the wrong statement. Talking to this black box is a better statement. Why are you here is much better than why are you still here now that you're dead? So I think you're absolutely on to something in what you're saying.
And if you want them to make a noise, saying we're, so dark we can't see it, just make a noise so we can tell where you're at. Versus knock twice if you're here. That's so it's almost a whole different language. Now I've had a lot of people come through, so I see many different styles. You see your own style, so I can compare to other people's styles as well. And
sure,
I can't say I saw anybody that did the talking presence, but I have seen some pretty unique groups coming through doing different things, and so it's kind of fun just seeing how they do things. Most of the times I'll let them go do it, but other times they want me to come along for a little bit, and I even offer my services, I guess you'd say. If things just start happening, I'll come back and see if that helps pick it up. I'll try whatever I can to make their night happen. But as I tell people, if nothing happens, which is a rarity, then we're not faking anything. What actually happened.
You're absolutely right, Dan. When we do public events where we have some haunted locations that we exclusively have access to, including the home haunt that we're based out of, what we'll do is we'll tell them, look, this isn't a carnival. We can't guarantee you an experience. We might go in here for the next 4 hours and talk to the thin air and nothing happened, or we might have the best night we've ever had. So, I think realistic expectations that, you got those two types of people. You got the thrill seekers and the serious researchers. So the ones that have been doing this, they know that. They know that, you got to go in and give it your best. And some nights it's awesome, and some nights it's not. And other nights you don't think anything happened, and then you start watching your recordings and listen to your recordings and watching your video, and you're blown away at what was happening that you were not privy to. So it's kind of a mix of all three.
And back you up a little bit, I think I'm a civil engineer, college, you may have to add one more category to your what causes what. You know, when you were talking about the 3 mechanical, because
Absolutely.
there was out there that if it didn't have enough light, would put these orbs that look like orbs, red dots, because the pixels didn't get. There's something with the pixels of that low light, so it would actually put red dots on the sensor, and people were passing them on as orbs when it was just a
Mechanical error.
Mhm.
That was years ago, and so I don't know if any of those cameras are still out there, but there's still also a chance of mechanical.
Well, I was going to say, Christina, why don't you touch on that real briefly? We're down to about 6 minutes, but I know what one of the things you look for is lens anomalies, like in actual camera lenses, right?
I do. One thing I like to know is what kind of camera, what kind of lens, what kind of cell phone. And then I look at recalls. I look at known defects with the lens, the maker, you know, so on and so forth, because that all comes into play. It really does. We've seen it, I don't know how many times, even recently, some of the pictures that we've caught. It is really crazy, though. I would love to see some of the photos that you've seen, though, and that you've got. If you're willing to share, I really would love to see them.
Yeah, and I do it a little differently that I don't want to mention over the air, but I've done my own little twist to see if I can ramp it up. And it seems to work, but yet I know it's not mechanical because I got the best cameras. I'll save my money a little longer, buy the best one instead of go ahead and buy one that with the good lenses and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I know lens flares and stuff like that do occur. But yes, I'm more than willing to show you the photograph.
I'm excited. I'm
won't
excited.
even say anything to you. What you see, and so I don't persuade you one way or the other. I'm curious myself, because if it is a defect or something like that, then I want to correct it, because I don't want to be passing it off as truth when somebody says when it's not. So
well,
and I've never passed them off as truth yet, because I've never really had anybody analyze the picture. So
yeah, hopefully
but I'm
we
the
get
owner.
to.
They're going to accuse me of taking them. You know.
Right.
Hopefully
So
we
give me a
get to
good
meet you
reason,
when we come up.
I'm sorry. Go on.
I said hopefully we'll get to meet and chat with you when we come up there in September.
Oh yes. I got plenty to tell, and some I can say on the radio. Some I don't want to, and I don't mean it's bad. I just don't want to give anything away, and
No, absolutely.
that may or may not exist here, or along that lines. We hope everybody has a good time. Come do what come get what they wanted. In that sense, if they want to come check out the history of the place, the architecture, we're all about that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for sharing all this history with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just great. Like I said, I mean, keeping those places alive for future generations, that's something that needs to happen, because, history is such a valuable tool, and sadly, sometimes it's lost through progress. But anybody that is watching this or watches it later on, we have the number scrolling along the bottom of the screen, and that is for Dan Allen. If you get in touch with him for any of the locations that he currently has open for investigations, he'll be able to help you out, and strongly suggest if you can get to any of his places, check them out, look at them online. He's got some absolutely phenomenal locations, but we are about out of time. So thank you, everybody who tuned in tonight. Dan, stick around for just a few minutes, because when we go off the air, we'll talk to you for just another minute. But everybody that tuned in, thank you for the continued support. Thank you for continuing to tune in and watch us. And remember to check us out at SRS Paranormal's Facebook and www.srsparanormal.com, where we do stuff outside of what we do here at Paranormal Warehouse. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.